doesn't know it yet, but he does.
What, this?
Yeah.
Thank you all for showing up for the press conference for this amazing movie, biopic on the life of Ray Charles, Ray. I'll introduce in order the participants here from on my left, starting with Aunjanue Ellis. Regina King. The director, Taylor Hackford. You know him as Wanda or maybe Drew Bundini Brown. You will now know him forever as Ray Charles, Jamie Foxx. My friend Kerry Washington. And Sharon Warren. Here's a question I want to start. I'll start with you, Aunjanue. We'll work our way down the panel. When did you first hear Ray Charles, and what did the music mean to you when you heard it?
I have to say, actually, my first memory of Ray, I don't know what my first memory of Ray Charles is like specifically, because I feel like he's just kind of been in the fabric of my life since birth. But I guess the first kind of like milestone moment was actually that episode of The Cosby Show. When they, you know, and I mean that episode was such a like formative part of like my, you know, pubescence, and I've just been in love ever since.
Regina?
My father is a huge Ray Charles fan, so, and not that my mother wasn't a huge Ray Charles fan, but she's not like a big music person. So I just always remember hearing Ray Charles, my mom be, turn that mess off. And my dad be like, no, it's Ray. You're not turning Ray off. So that's my first memory of him.
I was in 5th grade, and I heard I Got a Woman, and you know, I just immediately realized there was something totally unique about that voice, and you know, most of the records after that point just colored my generation and my life, and he was one of those seminal figures that you know, and we all know, as a kind of defining American culture.
Jamie?
Well, obviously, Georgia, growing up as a kid playing the piano, Georgia was one of the classier songs and simpler songs to play. So that was the first thing that you wanted to learn, because you wanted to have that in your repertoire when you start out and you're singing. And obviously too, Georgia and those songs were close to like church songs. So Georgia was the main, was my main tune. I loved it.
Kerry?
My dad is a singer, and he has a great voice. I love your dad. And I forgot about this until I was upstairs, and Sharon said that it was her favorite song. And on Christmas, my dad and I used to always sing together, Baby It's Cold Outside, every Christmas. That's a big memory of when I was a kid, of my dad and I singing Baby It's Cold Outside. That was my introduction to Ray.
Sharon?
Georgia. I spent my summers in Waynesboro, Georgia with my grandmother, and the Georgia commercials that he would do all of the time. And I just knew that song by heart, and it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful song.
Was there one song for you, Jamie, that sort of epitomized what you want this character to be, or something like that? Like one piece of music that you wanted to sort of keep in your head to remind you who Ray Charles was?
The what now?
Was there like one piece of music or anything particular that you want to keep in your head to remind you who he was?
The one song that I keep going back to was a song that I wasn't quite familiar with, was Mary Ann. And that shows, in that sequence, everything about Ray Charles, a man who's married, but at the same time, this woman that is tempting him because the newness of her, excited him, and the way he embodied all of the troubles, the tribulation that was going on in his mind. He was doing a whole lot of layers going on when that song was happening. And the musically, it was funky, it was calypso, it was a little bit of almost Jamaican style. So I dig that.
Taylor, must have been interesting for you too to have somebody who has done so many different kinds of music, because music has been so important in your movies in the first place. And was this one of the things that attracted you to him, besides being such a seminal figure, that he did so many different kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, when I Ray Charles Jr., who was a producer on this film, came to my production company, and Stuart Benjamin, who's sitting in the audience, is my co-producer. We met him, and he said, why don't we, we had done La Bamba, which was about Richie Valens. He said, well, you did La Bamba, but my dad's life is more rich, and I jumped at the chance to meet Ray Charles because, as I said, he was a lifelong idol, but I didn't know him personally. Went into his office not knowing his story and met the man for 2 hours, completely changed my total outlook. I mean, no one could meet Ray Charles in person and not be inspired by him, not be completely blown away by the independence, the power of this man. And then when I heard his story, I realized that regardless of the music, there was a brilliant story about a man who had come from absolutely nothing. There's a lot of those stories in America. There's a lot of rags to riches stories, but I don't think anyone did it like Ray Charles, blind. And so I felt that the story in and of itself was compelling. Add the music back, and then it's brilliant.
I want to talk to all of you. I'll start with you, Sharon. Obviously, you didn't meet his mother, but the idea of playing a real-life figure, what does that do, and how does that inform your performance?
It's intense. It's intense, and especially Ray Charles spoke so highly of his mother to so many other people that he had a profound impact on, and so his mother became sort of a figure for them. Quincy Jones speaks profoundly about her in his autobiography. So the scrutiny, if you will, I don't have a picture, you don't know. He describes what she looks like, but just who this woman is and who he defined her as for so many different people. I think that Ray Charles met people at their lives when they really needed to be encouraged, and he was that catalyst, and he would speak about his mother because she was that catalyst for him. So I spoke to his son, Ray Charles Jr., and he shared a lot of private and intimate things with me, a lot of things that are not in print. And I spoke to James L. White and, of course, my director, and I just prayed. And I spoke to my grandmother, who was born in 1915. So that was the whole premise for giving life and birth to Aretha.
Kerry?
I actually had the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with the real Mrs. Ray Charles, and she's become one of my favorite people of all time. I think she's a phenomenal woman. For me, it had two sides. At one hand, it was really, really helpful. Like when I act, I make up all these lists of like, if my character was a flower, what flower would they be? If, what's my
cake.
Jamie makes a lot of fun.
Please tell the story about the cake.
Okay,
yeah,
Jamie.
what's the story about the cake? What kind of cake would you be?
In my process of interviewing Mrs. Charles, she mentioned to me that she was not a very good cook. And that she would often make things and they would be absolutely disastrous. But that through the years she had become a better cook. But I decided to have a conversation with the props department, and there's a scene where there's a birthday cake, and I said, would you do me a favor and not make the cake perfectly? Make it a little lopsided, a little strange looking, because that would be true to the story, and I thought that would be a neat little thing for me to have to work with in the scene. And well, they bring the cake out on set, and Jamie goes, what's wrong with this cake? What's up with the cake?
All of the cakes were like, just in case.
We had to make like about 30 cakes because we would cut the cakes. And so they made like 30 crooked cakes. And Jamie proceeded to make fun of me for the entire rest of the movie. Every time Taylor would tell me to stand in a different place, Jamie would say, I don't know, what's my intention?
The look on your face. No, I don't want you doing that.
I think about things a lot. So, yeah, it was really great for me to be able to have a lot of realness to work on. But also, she became because I liked her so much, it also is a little scary for me. That there are two people that I'm nervous about seeing this movie, and one was her and the other one was my boyfriend, because I have a lot of respect for what he thinks. But I was terrified to have her see the film because I didn't know what she would think of me portraying her on screen. And to be honest with you, she doubted me. The first time that she met me, she called the producers and said, I don't know how she's going to do it. She's so little and she's so young, and and so thank God she didn't have me fired. But but she loves the film, and she really loved my performance, and so I'm very happy.
Well, Jamie, for you playing a real person, besides criticizing people's baking skills, what about What was it like for you? This is you just played back to back, real life people. What was it like doing something like this?
Well, you know what? It's the reason that it's tough is because everybody knows Ray Charles. I mean, that's somebody that you know everything about. There's definitely the impersonation of Ray Charles that people have done throughout the years, but it was a matter of getting the nuance of Ray Charles as opposed to doing impersonation. And when Taylor and I got together and we started talking about how to do this, man, the issue of the weight was a big thing. Taylor was on me like, "Hey, man, you working on the weight? You gotta lose that weight. Are you working on the weight? Because I'm 100 and I walk around at 190 pounds, and so to lose 30 pounds with the help of my trainer, Rashawn Khan, and he's coming out with a book too, Conditioning. He changed my metabolism because in the 40s and the 50s there was no creatine, there was no working out, nobody bench pressing, no steroid. It was just it was smaller men. So once I got down to the weight, and then once we started taking the process of glasses and the hair and everything like that, and then hanging out with Ray Charles just for a little bit, and then having Taylor call and scream at me because I didn't come down to the studio to hang out with Ray. Ray was, in his 70s at the time, so I didn't want to get that information first because I pick up everything real fast. And then Quincy Jones, and talking to him, Ray really truly is a pioneer. He's something else. He's a son of a bitch too. He's really something else. I don't know how I could help you, but that we have this tape. I have a tape that you can listen to, because you're really going to enjoy the music that we do. He was wild, he was crazy, but you listen to this tape. So he gives me a cassette tape. You would think a DVD or something, but I get this cassette tape, and on the cassette tape it says, "Hi, this is Donna Shore from the Donna Shore Show. I'm here with two very wonderful musicians here today, and Mr. Kenny Rogers and Mr. Ray Charles." And in the back you hear, "Hello. I'm just so excited to be here, Donna." And it was the different, the voice. And Taylor was like, we have to pay attention to the fact that we start out with him early on in his career and then take that DNA and then match it throughout the piece and the way his voice, changes and everything. So we paid a lot of attention to getting the nuance of him, how he orders his food, how he talks to his wife, how he talks to his kids, how he gets mad, but not mad like he internalizes. So a lot of different things in order to make it to where when you look on the screen, even when I walked in for the looping, I'm walking in and I could see the screen from back there, and I'm looking, I said, "Oh, that must really be Ray Charles. They must be splicing some footage." And then you actually get, and it was even eerie to me to see it like that, because you want to disappear, and that's what we were trying to do, just absolutely disappear.
Regina, for you, playing somebody who actually existed, even though you obviously didn't get a chance to meet her, but what was that like?
Well, for me, it was, my first time of hearing her is just like Aunjanue on the Cosby episode. That's the first time I heard Margie's voice. And I really didn't have anything there aren't really any pictures of her. There's probably, 4 or 5 pictures. There's not really any video of her. So the only thing that I could go on is information that Taylor gave me, and was that Ray, thought of her as like his muse in a way, like there's no other Margie Hendrix. So I kind of had to just take that in this voice and just try to just create what I thought Margie would be. So for me, it was a little bit more difficult because I just didn't have as much information.
Did that free you up a little bit because you actually didn't have as much information as everybody else had?
I don't know if it freed me up. It might have made me a little more nervous.
Really?
Well, because you are portraying a real live person, and there are her family members that are gonna see it.
Sure.
So, and I guess I won't know until one of them runs into me on the streets or something. So I guess I still have a little bit of nervousness when it comes to when I do meet someone who's related to Margie or who actually knows Margie, because I didn't get to meet any of the band members. And Ray had 2 separate lives. He had his life at home and his life with the band. And Margie was part of that life with the band. And like Ray Jr., who's part of the film, he didn't get to know Margie because he was, part of the home life.
Sure.
So I kind of had to depend on what my director told me about her and just, say a prayer.
Aunjanue?
I think my experience was very similar to Regina's. It was like skeletal information for me, and so I think I was informed by the music. You know, I just let the information I got from her voice kind of inform what I did.
So that was kind of your guide, just using that music in that way.
Yeah.
Just if there are questions out here, sure.
The question is for Taylor. I personally know why I would pick Jamie for that plum role. Why did you pick him for the plum role?
Well, first of all, we got the rights 15 years ago. And had I made the film 15 years ago, Jamie Foxx wouldn't have starred in it. Thank goodness it took 15 years to make the film. I mean, I wouldn't have said that before, but realizing that I don't think we could have had the movie we have without him playing the role. And Jamie was talking about this, but the one thing you come to realize with Jamie is that, many actors say, well, I can do this or I can do this. Jamie says he'll do something, he'll do it. I suggested he go blind for the role, and he agreed. And some people would say that would be fine, I'll do it for an afternoon, We covered his eyes with prosthetics, and he went blind. He needed to feel. You think about Ray Charles. Ray Charles is an incredibly personable man, an incredibly dynamic man. In a way, when you met him late in his life, he was an invincible man. At the same time, I had to delve deeply into the story, which we kind of composed, about what his vulnerabilities were, and a lot of that had to do with his childhood and the fact that he was a man alone in the dark. And Jamie went into that zone, which I had a great deal. I mean, I made the suggestion, but he could have said no, or he could have said, yeah, I can do it for 15 minutes. But he did it we went totally blind for about a month of the shoot, and then we made little slits in the bottom of the prosthetics so he could see his shoes. But he's talking about walking into loop session. I've never been with an actor where you go to loop session where you replace dialogue if a plane goes over and ruins the soundtrack. And he'd come in and go, man, look at that. Regina's wearing a purple dress. I said, well, of course she was. She did the scene. Well, he never saw what was in the scene, ever. He heard it, he experienced it, but he didn't see it with his eyes, which is very much, I think, helps inform his role. But going back to your question, I didn't know he could do it. I'm looking for somebody that has a physical nature that could resemble Ray Charles. Jamie's got the height. This is another thing about Jamie. I said, Ray Charles weighed 157 pounds. He says, I'll do it at 157 pounds. From 190, all right? More than 30 pounds. And he just said, I'll be there, because you see, today, guys pump and they kind of come out of their jackets, Ray Charles, the clothes drape on Ray Charles. He had sartorial splendor. The man knew how to dress, and you could see the fabric fall on him. Well, that's what happens in this film because Jamie made the commitment to take the weight off. Little by little, I started to see that this man was a kind of artist that would go all the way. But it was a thing of discovery for both of us. I mean, it was a great experience, for me, the collaboration, because you have an actor of such commitment and total, involvement that he inspired everybody of us, of course, but also the people behind the camera, the crew. We didn't have a lot of money to make this film. We were busting our ass. It was hot, it was humid, and I was pushing everybody very hard,
He's the nicest, meanest man you've ever met in your life.
True.
I'll never. What was it? When the camera, because he has a way of cussing you out, but making you feel good about it. Hey, you effed that up, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Yeah, you did. I like it, but you effed that up. So it was true, and everybody that was on the set knows exactly what I'm talking about. But it was just a great experience, man. You cannot explain what was going on that set. You don't get things like that.
It's magical.
Yeah, but just the final bit is that I can lead a set, all right. But when you have a cast and you also have a star who's not running back to his trailer, not throwing tantrums, not having a situation where regardless of how much he's being paid, he's just being, difficult. Nobody had anything to complain about because Jamie was working harder than anybody. And, if anybody wanted to bellyache, they would look at him and say, what do I have to bellyache about? This guy is brilliant and he's doing it all and working, harder than I am. So in a way, he provided the leadership that really helped me make this movie.
I'm sorry, let's get somebody else to answer. We'll go back to you. Yeah,
Hi, Jamie. For Jamie, can you talk about what it was like to actually play with Ray Charles and how that affected what you brought to the role?
You can't even imagine, how that feels. For a person who starts out in music, my whole career was supposed to be music. I was just I sort of fell into the whole acting thing, to see Ray Charles, and not to just see him play the stuff that but he sat down, we played the blues, we started singing back and forth with each other, and he dug that, and he said if you could play the blues, you could do anything. Then he went into Thelonious Monk. Wow. Was it tough? It was crazy. And at the same time, you wanna do your best to get it, but he was grilling me. I hit a note, and he said, "No, why would you do that?" But he was serious about it. It wasn't like it went from we were having a great time singing the blues, and he asked, "Why would you do that?" Which was an interesting thing. I said, "I don't know why I did it." He said, "Well, the notes are right underneath your fingers," and basically that was his metaphor for life. Everybody's note is really underneath your fingers. All you have to do is take the time out to find the right notes, so you can play whatever music that you're supposed to play in life. So I took every single thing, even when he grilled me, and then when I finally, got it right, then he checked off on it and said, "Okay, now the kids got it," and he walked off into the sunset. But it was amazing, an amazing thing.
You have a question, Baz? Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Baz Bammy Boy. Jamie, we've heard about how you sort of accomplished the musical side, but the great thing about this film is you've also captured his demons. Yeah. Did you discuss that with him? Did you have that opportunity, or what?
Yeah, with you asked the questions that you want, and I know everybody. Well, Kerry got a chance to talk to Della, so you try to ask the question. Everybody has a sort of a shield up when you because you don't want to tell everybody what you really think about things. There's that certain shield that we have. I would ask Ray, because Taylor said, Ray had a lot of women, and he said we're going to have to try to really get the real story out of Ray. And I would ask Ray, you have a lot of women? No. As Ray, but they tell me that you had a lot of women. I don't know. And then eventually, as he would open up, he would say, well, there was this one girl. And that one girl turned into, a few girls, and then we really got the chance to find out what it was about, because when Ray Charles you got to look at it this way. When you go to a club, we were at a club last night for a short period of time. And in the club, when our favorite song came out, people just went, oh, imagine Ray Charles is playing. He's right there. Your record is right there in front of you, because it's a live band. It's a live. He called the women Bobby Soxers. So when he's playing, they don't have to go buy the record or wait till the video come on. They could go right up to him after it was over. So there was a lot of that
Wrist feeling.
Appreciation.
Yeah, appreciation for.
I would want to address your question, if that's okay. I felt really honored, because before this film started, Mrs. Robinson, because his real name is Ray Charles Robinson, Mrs. Robinson never did an interview with anyone, because her life was so private. So the interview that she did with the writer, James White, was the first interview she ever did with anybody, and the interview she did with me was the second. And then she just agreed to do her first public appearance. We did an interview together for Entertainment Tonight, and she said she would only do it if I did it with her. But it was it was such an absolute privilege to be let into that inner sanctum that had been guarded for so many years.
Your question here.
So I am sorry I didn't see yet the movie, because I just arrived from Venice. I will see this evening. I just wanted to know the process. I just wanted to know the process for the music. Who is singing in the movie? When Jamie is singing, we hear the voice of Ray Charles. So can you explain, because all the people is curious to know.
It's the voice of Ray Charles. It's the playing of Ray Charles. Jamie is a fabulous musician, but when you have Ray Charles, and these are masterpieces, I made the choice early on not to mess with that. Now, the thing that's important is that Ray, all the performances in the film, And I was very, very fortunate in that Tom Dowd, who is probably the greatest engineer of his generation at Atlantic, recorded Ray Charles in monaural in the early 50s, and I was still able to use that in this film. It was unbelievable. Now, we did enhance a little bit, added some horns when we cut to horns, but the very fact that you have recordings from 1953 that are the quality is that good is an amazing tribute to Atlantic Records and to Tom Dowd. Later, Ray had live recordings of him in the late 50s and early 60s that I used. However, in a dramatic film like this, it's not just the performance footage. We had Ray Charles. Ray Charles worked on this film. He was involved in us in the 15 years of development. He read the script, he made suggestions, and we went in the studio together. So I would suggest to him the dramatic nature of a scene, the emotional content, the interpersonal conflicts, and he would lay out certain moments on piano, or he arranged some of the material that wasn't so well recorded. He had been on the road with Lowell Fulson. Lowell Fulson, his early records weren't as good as Ray Charles' early records. So Ray took musicians in the studio, and I had Chris Thomas King, who plays Lowell Fulson, who's a great singer-guitarist. You remember him from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And Chris played and did the vocals, and Ray arranged the band and played piano on Every Day I Have the Blues and Rock This House. So, Ray Charles was a collaborator on this film in a major way. Now, that's up to a certain point. Now, you've got to make that come alive on film. And Jamie Foxx had to learn not only the lip sync. This is the extraordinary thing about this. Not only did he learn the lip sync, but he had to learn the fingering on the piano. And Ray Charles has a very distinct style on the piano. So the gift that he gave a filmmaker, I don't know how many musical films you've seen, but normally you can find somebody who is halfway trained as a musician. Jamie went to university on a piano scholarship. He's a consummate musician. Ray did all the fingering on the piano. We shot that. Jamie then had those tapes. The amount of time and preparation it takes for him to do the role, the look of Ray Charles, the movement, all those things, you have no idea. Then he has to get the lip sync absolutely perfect. And Ray Charles doesn't sing like on the note, does he? Everything with Ray Charles is offbeat, and he's known for being one of the slowest interpreters of music. Nobody quite knows where the beat's going to be. As Ray says, watch my shoulder, watch my foot. He tells the drummer, and that's it. And drummers have been known to go crazy watching Ray Charles. Jamie had to learn. That's right. Jamie had to learn all that and did.
Was that his shoulder? Was his back?
So he came to the set that prepared on the lip sync and on the piano, and gave me the gift that I can cut all the way through. I can be on the hands, go up to the face, come down to the hands, and everything is in sync. I don't think I can think of any musical film that anybody could do that, and it was an extraordinary experience. One last thing. Jamie did use his own voice in a couple of moments in the film, all right? Early on when Nat King Cole, when Ray is copying Nat King Cole, that's Jamie. Another instance where he is actually doing Ray's voice, but I'm not going to tell you where. See if you can guess.
We won't tell anybody, Taylor. Why don't you just tell us in this room?
No, I think it's best to say it's mostly Ray Charles, all of it, and extraordinary. And the man knew that, and he was very much part of this film.
I wonder if Taylor and Jamie could talk about the Oscar buzz building for Jamie's performance before this film has even screened here. Do you guys pay attention to that word, Oscar, or those words, Oscar buzz?
Well, for me, this film took a long time to make, and we're extremely proud. I'm proud of everybody here, and all the people who are not here. The cast in this movie are fantastic, and my collaborators behind the camera, Pavel Edelman and Paul Hirsch, the editor, Pavel, the cinematographer, Steve Altman, the designer, great people. So, reality is, you got to focus on the work. We focus on the work, and hopefully the work goes out and is seen by people and be appreciated. So, we'll see what happens, but most importantly, I'm looking forward to tonight. 2,500 people are going to see the film for the first time.
Yep.
I accept it in the sense of that it brings more attention to the project. Like I've always said that when you go out, and I know everybody on this panel, when you go out and you have to promote a movie, that you really know it wasn't quite there for whatever reason is. We know, like Taylor said, the work was there. Every woman on this table, to me, if I was giving out, say, the Omar, they would get the Omar from me because the women on this film are absolutely incredible. So you guys all get Omars. Because you guys, and you know that when the work is like that, you could really sit back and you can really speak freely. And if that happens, and people get a chance to see this one, which started out so small, people get a chance to see the film, and it's a beautiful testimony to Ray Charles. It's basically giving him his flowers, you know, because we lose a lot of people sometimes. We never get a chance to do anything about it. I never forget when Red Fox passed away. Red Fox was huge to me, and it was really not too much said. This is a chance for us to show the world, and if that's what they're saying, we accept all of it.
Taylor, let me ask you this. You cast so many people who look like the people, right down to getting Ahmet and Jerry. I mean, was that important to you, too, to have that physical resemblance like in so many of the other performances?
Crucial. I mean, you have a responsibility, especially since Ahmet Erdogan is one I have a very close relationship with, and Jerry Wexler I also know very well. They're not easy men. And neither is Quincy Jones. Quincy's an old-time friend of mine, and you have to understand these people were incredibly supportive. You know, Quincy Jones early on when I first went to Ray Charles, and I knew Quincy, and he said to Ray, Taylor's the right guy to make this, Ray. And that means so much when you have somebody stand up for you. But Lorenz Tate, who's playing Quincy Jones, is he's a fabulous actor. He's a great-looking guy. He has all the smoothness of Quincy, but
especially the young Quincy.
And the intelligence. Pardon me?
Especially the young Quincy.
Exactly. Well, Quincy likes to look like At this point, he said he knew Lorenz, and the thing is, I can introduce these people. Taking Jamie to Quincy's house the first time was an incredible experience. First 13, I timed it. Within 13 seconds, Quincy had his arm around Jamie, totally inclusive, bringing him into the process. Generosity, which was great. But, it's important. I mean, Ahmet Erdogan and Jerry Wexler, I made a very, I hope, wonderful portrait of in this instance. Do we capture all their complexity? No, it wasn't their film. But Atlantic Records was extremely important to American R&B, jazz, etc. And Ray Charles had a great relationship with both those men right up until his death. So I felt the presentation of that relationship was important.
A question for Mr. Hackford. Since Ray Charles was not only living, but he was involved in the movie for more than 15 years, did you find any limitations at all as a filmmaker in trying to tell the story?
No, I think that is the extraordinary thing here. Ray Charles is, as you could see from seeing the film, not an easy man. And as his life grew on, now he did, he kicked heroin when we do in the film in 1965, and he never went back. But, he was in total control of his life, so there could have been a nightmare. The great thing about Ray, and again, we spent a long time, trying to get this movie made. By the time we made the movie, he trusted us. I'm going to give credit to Stuart Benjamin, who kept this project alive for 10 years. I was off making movies, and he was keeping it alive. But ultimately, by the time we made the movie, Ray Charles had been through his process that he put Jamie through with us, of checking us out. He also is a voracious reader. He had the script translated into Braille, read it. He had only 2 comments. Now he was, Ray was he was as smart a man as anybody I've ever met. And he kind of said, Taylor, I know what you're doing here. You're using some dramatic license, but ultimately it's the truth. And you may have condensed things, but it's the truth. He had a couple of points that he wanted changed. And I thought, because I thought, gee, I've read this in books, and I think that, that obviously a number of writers said that this happened. Well, guess what? He said, Taylor, with all the unsympathetic things that are in this picture, do you think I'm going to pick something out? Why wouldn't I pick everything else out? He said, that didn't happen. And I checked, talked to some musicians, etc. Margie Hendricks died of a heroin overdose, but she never did heroin in his band. And Ray says, you can't say that because I wouldn't let her. And that was an interesting thing. We changed it. But as a whole, the great thing about Ray Charles, to me, and the great gift that he gave all of us as filmmakers, was that he let us make the movie. He said, I'm no angel, and I don't want to be painted as an angel. Just tell the truth. He had enough security in and of himself to know that he was a great artist and he'd made his mark. And I think he trusted that we were going to do him justice, and I hope we have.
But it's interesting, too, because it's also a movie about a man who is something different to everybody in the movie. He has a different relationship to everybody in the movie. And how'd you guys all kind of figure out a way to do that? Because he was so compartmentalized that, and he's kind of like, it's still kind of a private, not for me, he's still kind of a private guy, isn't he?
You know, I think in this instance, when you're working with actors, you have to find something specifically here to invest in each relationship. And, you know, clearly, Ray and Della had a very, very loving and unique relationship. Was it easy? You know, and I talked to Della in 1987. You know, no, it wasn't easy, but, you know, she was who she was. She accepted Ray for what he was, and he did respect her on one level, you know, hugely, by saying, this is my home, this is my family. With Margie, you know, since I was never able to talk to Margie, but everybody that I talked to, and I certainly talked to a lot of musicians in his band, people who knew Margie and so on, Margie was a wild spirit. She had this incredible passion. You know, you hear Margie Hendricks, you know, we referring later to Betty Carter. Betty Carter's the only woman who also sang up to Ray Charles, but in a different way. Margie Hendricks stood toe-to-toe with Ray Charles.
Like she was daring him on stage.
And really laid it there. And you know that she was his equal on that level. And they were equals in bed also. And they had passion in their artistic life and in their personal life. So you know, you try to give those keys to the characters, and then within the limits of what we're doing, you know, they capture it. You know, Marianne Fisher was an unknown to me. Aunjanue Ellis is a fantastic talent and a very sexy woman. She just imbued that character with intelligence and so forth, and you know, you cast well. And then you decide to let the actors, you know, develop the chemistry, and they did.
I have to say, it's really exciting to see a major studio movie with so many beautiful black women in it. It's really kind of an accomplishment.
Well, let me make. I totally agree, but let me make one qualification. I think it's important, especially at a film festival. This is a film that was an independent film. There's a man and his wife.
It wasn't a studio film.
No. Howard Baldwin and Karen Baldwin were sitting back there, producers of the film. They had a company called Crusader that was their partner, Phil Anschutz, who is a man of substantial means, I would say, because he wrote a check for this film. But regardless, this film was made at about a third of what it would have cost at a major studio. And nobody would make this film. No studio would make this film.
I guess I can guess why.
I can tell you they don't like biopics. You know, biopics. Ali went out, didn't make any money. Black biopics they like even less. No one's standing up in line to make this movie, and that's why it took 15 years to make it. It didn't take 15 years to make because we couldn't get a screenplay or because we didn't have a great story. Nobody wanted to make it. And Howard and Phil Anschutz stood up, believed in this film, and they had a lot of balls to make it. And I want to say that because it's true. Now I also want to say that Ron Meyer, who runs Universal Pictures, again, every studio saw this movie finished, every single one, and didn't want it. And a man who, you know, normally doesn't get involved in the process, who's head of a studio, Ron Meyer, saw it and said, I want that picture from Universal. And, you know, who's to know that Ron Meyer, when he was in junior high school, snuck into Ray Charles concerts at the Palladium? You know, some of these things come home to roost, and Universal's done a brilliant job on the film that they picked up. I mean, I really am thrilled with what they've done, but the film was an independent film.
Also, too, before, since this is almost over, you got to say this about this director, Mr. Taylor Hackford. He has done a wonderful job on this movie. You know, when you think, go ahead, you can trust me. You never say, you cannot say enough about him. And I'm a young Southern black kid from the South who've always had like these different racial things. He took a chance in how he casted this movie. He fought for this movie because a lot of times Hollywood you could use the black cast, but sometimes it may not be the, I don't know how to say it, you know, it may not be the oomph. Like, I know when people watch this film, they go, that's my man or that's my girl.
You're trying to say that sometimes cast it's kind of safe instead of going the right way for it?
Well, Elvis, I'm going to let you say that. but he really listened, and that's the main thing. When you have a person that listens and understands that we know our black experience, and sometimes in Hollywood, sometimes we compromise a little bit, but he let us really just say this is how it should be, and he said okay, and he listened to all of it, and he chose wonderfully. He makes it. Most biopics is, and this happened, and then that happens. He really makes the movie come alive. It's a movie. I give my Omar Award to Mr. Taylor Hackford.
No, one fast, very fast, go.
The name of your trainer and where was this party?
The name of the trainer is Rashawn Khan. He's coming out with his own. We're coming out with his cookbook and everything like that, conditioning. And the party was at the Brandt House.
Okay, well,
Should have been there.
Well, let's thank Omar Award winner Taylor Hackford and everybody else from Red.